Welcome to Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. As we head now to the second half of the week and go into the weekend, we're going to have another beautiful day. But we do have big changes coming down the road as we're going to be looking at colder, unsettled, and really, quite frankly, wintry weather is going to overspread the Intermountain West, the northern plains especially, as we get to the end of the week, the weekend, next week, and I think into the first days of April as it's looking right now, as it's going to be a very busy weather pattern. However, we still have some very mild and some nice weather to contend with here over the next day or two, especially over the central and southern Rockies and the central and southern areas of the plains where temperatures will be mild, the sun will be out, and it will look and feel very spring-like. We're still looking at that overrunning event for Montana, far northern Wyoming, both Dakotas as we get into Thursday and Friday. I don't see it as a big event, but certainly it's going to be much colder with moderate snowfall in those areas I listed there. We're going to be looking at much colder air coming out of Canada into those northern areas, but kind of stalling. The cold air will get to a certain point as it pushes south and then stall. But another storm system comes off the Pacific and takes that cold Canadian air and just grabs it and pulls it south. So temperatures by Sunday, Monday, and into Tuesday of next week will be much colder over all areas. That will be associated with the second round of snow. Again, as we mentioned yesterday, it looks somewhat disorganized, but as it gets better organized and the potential for it to get better organized is there, it could be impactful. And we'll show you, especially the northern areas, the northern plains, where the snow is likely going to be the heaviest and the storm the most intense. But you do need to be ready for kind of a shock to the system, back to much colder weather, especially for most areas in that Sunday, Monday time frame. So that colder weather, scattered areas of snow will start to come and spread east of the divide and certainly into the high country by that time frame. Livestock interest, especially in Montana, northern Wyoming, the Dakotas, then across portions of Nebraska, and then into the upper Midwest. This is going to be a big snow event for portions of Minnesota, maybe northwest Iowa, eastern areas of Nebraska as well. Those folks need to kind of keep an eye on things with any calving operations going on. At the end of the podcast, I'm going to briefly discuss, yes, the April 8th solar eclipse. No, I'm not going to give you a forecast, but just kind of give you a heads up that we are going to be watching it as we get closer. Great photos coming in, just classic springtime shots there. A couple of dueling roosters there, and then a beautiful shot out of southern Colorado after all that snow late last week and last weekend over the Spanish Peaks. Just great backdrops of dark blue spring skies with those fresh mountain snows. It's beautiful out there. The satellite imagery this morning, well, pretty nice and pretty boring. We've got this low off the coast of Washington and Oregon. That'll be a player later. These gray clouds, these blue clouds here, some colder air beginning to leak south out of Canada, and the combination of that colder air and that low pressure will start to work together here in about 24 hours or so. In the meantime, a lot of high pressure, a lot of very nice weather over the Intermountain West. That upper low over the desert Southwest is finally getting a kick east, but high pressure will be in control. By tomorrow afternoon, by late tomorrow afternoon and evening, there's a little bit more of a push of that colder air coming in from the north. Then moisture coming in off the Pacific, and this is by Friday night. Now notice it's kind of a subtle change in the pattern, but this low gets a little bit closer, the deeper moisture comes in, and the colder air has a bit more time to get a little bit deeper across southern Canada and the northern Rockies and the northern plains, bringing that overrunning event. And there's the cold air by Saturday morning. It backs right up to the Continental Divide in Montana. Then you can see northern Wyoming is kind of dancing right on the boundary here. So for you folks along the I-90 corridor, as you go to Sheridan, Buffalo, Gillette, over to Sundance and Newcastle and Upton and up into Rapid City, you're kind of right on that boundary where the cold air could kind of move in and out. In the deeper cold air is where the overrunning precipitation and snow will be. So this graph looks a lot like what we've showed you before, but do notice we are going to get some precipitation as we go through Thursday and Friday, getting as far south as central and north central Wyoming, northeastern Wyoming, Heaviest stuff does stay north, but that colder air could go across the northern and central areas of the state along with a little bit of snow. Then, as we look at the snowfall totals with the first system, notice the bighorns here, Wyoming's northwest mountains. The deeper snow is going to be up here across Montana, Alberta, then into North Dakota and northern South Dakota, then eastward into Minnesota. So the first salvo really wants to stay up north. However, by noon Sunday, approximately, that Pacific low off the coast comes in, swings into Utah, then into Colorado. So the door just opens to the Canadian air here. It's going to overspill and come on in. So by Sunday into Monday, temperatures are going to be much, much colder over all areas. We're going to keep an eye on this guy. It's showing to be a little bit more organized now, but not really too well put together, but showing more organization as it goes through Colorado. So we have to keep an eye on it, because if it gets better organized, that will mean more snow on the plains. The track of this system is likely going to really target the northern plains for the most part, just depending on where it tracks. But this is going to be an upper Midwest northern plains storm where the storm will be the heaviest, where the heaviest snow will be. But it's going to be cold and getting unsettled everywhere. And notice the very strong, moist, energetic jet stream winds coming off the Pacific, which is just a signal that more waves and more fronts are coming behind this one. This is the temperature anomaly by 5 p.m. Sunday. So we're looking at sharply colder air across Montana, the western Dakotas, northeastern Wyoming, but notice the cold air is now to the Palmer Divide by Sunday afternoon and evening. The northern front range of Colorado is in the cold, and the cold all the way into the desert southwest and across the northern plains. So quite the deviation, quite the change is coming. Now, this is the precipitation with the second system. Notice the concentration of the heaviest precipitation over the Dakotas, Minnesota, northwest Iowa, northeastern areas of Nebraska. It's lighter further west, but it's still wet. Still the potential for snow, especially up into the high country. Maybe some snow on the plains. If it gets better organized, we're going to see more snow fall in this area here. That's why we kind of need to keep an eye on it. But it does look like the northern plains, the north central plains, I think will be kind of the bullseye of the most intense winter weather conditions. And it's going to get very wintry. Pretty impressive snowfall totals across the area. Again, this does not include the first system. This is the second system on its own. So depending on how well it gets organized, there could be a narrow strip of some significant snow there. Look how far south the cold air gets, down into northern Mexico here. So there's going to be a lot of wintry weather by Sunday and into Monday moving into the region. Livestock interest and travelers, you need to be prepared for the big change in colder temperatures, colder wind chills, and a wet March snow across the west and the northern plains. Now, going out further, this is for Easter Sunday as we go into the last Sunday of March. Another impressive low comes in. Here's that configuration we always look for. A high in the eastern Pacific, a high here in the south central United States, which will tend to consolidate the low pressure in the Four Corners and over Colorado right around April 1st, April Fool's Day. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And these waves, these perturbations in the jet stream flow, will probably give us a couple of cold fronts next week. They may not be low pressure systems that are organized, but frontal systems. So it's going to stay very active, busy, and cooler. Snowpack, I just wanted to show 3 snowpack areas that are really, really doing good. That's great to see. There's more coming. Look at all the blue there in Utah of snowpack levels that are well above average. Statewide, New Mexico, all the drainages above average. And Arizona, all of those snowpacks well above average. So the southwestern United States, the Colorado River Basin doing quite good. This will be the second year in a row. Quickly, about the solar eclipse coming on April 8th. So you can see the path of totality here going across Mexico and across a good chunk of the United States. That's what's going to be happening on Monday, April 8th. So we're getting closer. Here you can see the percentage of totality across the U.S. I want to thank Norm Hendrickson, a podcast listener, who sent me this graphic a while ago that shows the climatology of cloud cover. for April 8th across the U.S. This uses a reanalysis of weather data from 1979 to 1922. Basically, it looks at all of those years for the first 2 weeks of April and shows the percent of cloud cover that existed during those dates for the first 2 weeks of April. So you can see that the probability of clouds is highest, as you would expect in April, in the Great Lakes and the northeastern areas of the United States, with the cloud potential lower, as you'd expect, in the southwestern United States, down here along the path along here. However, this is just basically climatology. It doesn't include a forecast. This is not a forecast. This looks just at the probabilities, looking at historical trends. It's too early to give you a forecast, but as we start to get closer, let's say about 10 days out, we'll start showing you some hints of what we think may happen. And as we get closer, we'll try to fine-tune the forecast on what the forecast will be for cloud cover and weather along the path of totality. Have yourself a great Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow.